Blessing.
Hello. Hello. Okay. In all this, don't you think we are not? Are we not forgetting how we ended up here? Because from where I stand, I would want some clarification. Going back when Advocate Chamisa grabbed power from Thokozani Kupe, was it constitutional? If it wasn't constitutional, then what should have been the remedy going forward? Or we can just put that under the carpet, forget about it, and we say move on. Because I understand we are addressing the current situation, which from where I stand, it only passes blame to the people who are, according to Mr. Magaisa and Chipo, who are currently violating the Constitution. But what about those who started this whole fiasco? Had Advocate Chamisa not grabbed the power unconstitutionally, were we going to be here, and what should be the remedy going forward? Thank you.
Walter, please come in. After Walter, I'll have Shumba, then Brian, then if Walter is not ready. Walter?
Hello, I'm ready. Yeah, I was muted.
Okay, come in.
Yeah, my question is to Brian, Alex, and Professor Tuli. I just wanted to check on the previous precedents in South Africa where President Mbeki was recalled. Then subsequently, President Zuma was also recalled. Did the ANC went back to the electorate to ask the people to say, can we recall the president? Because the president was voted by the people on the ANC party card. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll have Shumba. Shumba, you ready?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Ibo.
Some of our women to come in, please. I'm going to defer to women callers.
Thank you, Ibo. Thank you for the opportunity, Ibo.
Welcome.
Thank you. My question is to Douglas Monzora and team. At the end of the day, it's not all about political parties, it's about the people. Did they go back to the people to ask if we should recall the parliamentarians that were voted in by the people? Because you cannot talk of the constitution and that you are actually violating yourself, then you bring it back to the people and saying, no, we are following the constitution. At the end of the day, you are not following what the people want. So at the end of the day, it's about what the people want. That's my point.
Thanks, Walter. Shumba, I mean. Brian? The other Brian, not our Brian.
Yes,
Brian?
yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, thank you. My question is for Brian. I think we all agree that, as you rightfully put it to us, that there was lack of honesty. Everyone has violated the Constitution, and you said nothing is legitimate. On that basis, how do you envisage that we can, all political parties at play here, can forge a way forward? We know that the level playing field is not right and was never right. How do we map a way forward in your own perspective? Thank you.
Dorcas, please. Dorcas. Welcome, Dorcas. I can see you. Unmute yourself. Dorcas, go ahead. Dorcas, go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Wonderful. Chipo makes a strong point about the population and the everyday person. And I think Alex's arguments are always anchored to the people. Could you tell us how can the average Zimbabwean, all of us, become more educated and more knowledgeable on our constitution, because we have to anchor our knowledge and our votes to the constitution. I'm just wondering how Anago Gokumusha, any everyday woman, a young person, can become much more informed about their rights, so that we all challenge this on a knowledgeable basis.
Yes, thank you. Elaine there? Elaine is gone. I'll have Marshall, and then Tatenda, then lastly, Wacha. Tatenda, are you there? Tatenda?
Yes.
Yes, come in.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I have a question to Douglas Monzora. Concerning what happened today. I think somebody that is actually asked about it, but I want to re-emphasize about it. We have seen that Jacob has won the election as a mayor. What is the position to Douglas Monzora, since this guy is openly affiliated to Nelson Chamisa? Is he going to recall him again so that he can replace him again, like what they did to Gomba? That's my question. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Wacha? Wacha, are you there? Wacha no longer there? I'm going to start back to front. I'm going to start with Thuli to answer questions and to sum up and end up with the first speaker, Alex Magaisa. So, can you hear me? Thuli, welcome.
Thank you, Dalkin. Thank you for the question. What a wonderful question. Firstly, two wrongs don't make a right. Assuming South Africa had gotten it wrong, it doesn't mean that Zimbabwe has to get it right. Assuming some of the political parties got it wrong previously, it doesn't mean we have to get it wrong right now. We are the intelligentsia of our countries. We are in this boat that is called Africa. If it sinks, we're going down. And ancient wisdom has always been about those who have eyes should see for those who don't have eyes. And we have an opportunity to understand our constitutions, not just in terms of the letter of the Constitution, but also the spirit of the Constitution. And clearly, these constitutions are about putting the demos, which is the people, at the center of the kratos, which is power. And anything that deviates from that is going to create lack of trust or a trust deficit and instability and direct elections. President Mbeki was never elected by us. No president in democratic South Africa, and insulate him from having daggers and threats from his party that threaten him with possible recall, particularly when he acts decisively against his own party members. And President Zuma was elected than 2 million people. The ANC is about 1.2 million, EFF about 2 million. And then these parties elect a president for 59 million people in parliament. And of course, they can also ask that president to resign on his own accord or have a vote of no confidence against him. But again, the numbers would threaten any president and he can resign on his own. Just again, my parting words to all of you, dear colleagues, is thank you for the privilege to participate in this. We have an opportunity in crises such as this to think better about how do we implement the instruments that we created. And constitutions do not cover all bases, but we can interpret them constructively, purposefully, and contextually to achieve stability and to put people at the center of our democracies. Thank you.
Oh, that's powerful, Thuli, most powerful. And thank you very much. It's something to savor, really. And a lesson in comparative constitutionalism, Professor Dendere. Brian Kagoro, there are a number of questions to you, and of course, can you sum up as well? Brian. Kagoro.
I'm trying to unmute myself. Thank you, Dr. Mandaza. Just as Tuli has said, the subtle difference between South Africa and Zimbabwe is that the president of South Africa is elected by the National Assembly, but there's a requirement in South African law that such a president must show that they have the support of the majority of parliamentarians. When the party which is the majority in parliament through its NSC recalls a president, it doesn't necessarily mean that they cease to be president. There still needs to be that parliamentary process. Our president is not elected by the parliament. So I think Julie has explained that. If you ask me what the way forward is, I think we are so skilled, or rather we've been playing in what I characterize, Dr. Mandaza, as the Premier League of pettiness. A lot of what's happening with these recalls is childish, petty politics, vindictiveness, and it really doesn't matter when this festival of illegalities started. And this is not a political beauty pageant. We're not in a political beauty pageantry to determine whether the Monzora faction, the Chamisa faction, or so and so, which one is correct. No. We're simply saying the country requires a law on the recall of MPs that will set out the procedures for recalling MPs and the requirements that each political party must satisfy when it purports to recall MPs. That's number one. Number two, I think for my colleagues within the opposition, this bloodletting, this hanging on to little technical legal niceties is not what the country requires. If we are going to have political parties play a developmental role in Zimbabwe, it is important that those political parties be developed, be mature in process and in approach, and not consume time in a country where 7.5 million people are facing hunger and the entire population is facing COVID-19 on these little games of decapitating the capacity for effective representation during the time of COVID. It would appear to me that if you want a commission of inquiry into how Chamisa became president of the MDC and whether this recalls, well, go and have that. But when the people voted, they were not mistaken about who they wanted to be a member of parliament. So if you're going to remove that member of parliament, you cannot impose another person without going back to the people, right? Or at least complying with some of these internal requirements that I have said. That said, Dr. Mandaza, I think you brought us here to discuss principles. And the principles are something has gone fundamentally wrong with our politics. National interest is often sacrificed by clever arguments to win, to consolidate, to conquer political power. And I really don't care at this moment. My brother Monzora and others know my position on this, that in the absence of dialogue within the opposition itself, in the absence of dialogue across all political parties on constructing an effective response by a united way of grown men playing dolly house. And it is sad, grown men and grown women playing dolly house. Mahumbwe, amandlwane. And we just need to get out of this nonsense and focus on the importance of the business before us. Nobody owes Zimbabwe a living. No one owes us a meal. If we're to fix our country, let's start off by dealing with things that are important and serious. And constitutionalism is no joking matter of point scoring.
Thanks, Brian. Characteristically sharp, strong. Always a pleasure to have you, Brian. My young professor, Chipo. Another bite, Chipo.
I I want to Alex and Dr. Magaisa, although I don't think Dr. Magaisa would consider himself a politician, and to say that I think you as politicians are doing what you're supposed to do for your political parties, right? So in a democracy, part of the job of politicians is to speak up for your political parties. And in that sense, I don't want us to come out as though this is an attack on your person, but a recognition that you're doing what you're supposed to do for your political parties. But the way that democracy works and constitutions work, and I think this is where the Zimbabwean population has been missing in the conversation, that we assume that once a constitution has been drafted and it's been passed, that this document can survive on its own without the support of people. But constitutions, as Professor Thuli Madonsela has already said, they also depend on our interpretation based on context. And what we've seen is that the context of the past continues to create this environment that allows for constitutional abuse. And on one hand, that's a reflection of a citizenry that has not been educated on their rights, right? On their right to engage in the conversation. So that's important. And then one of my favorite American politicians, I want to say this, Madison said this, that if men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, then neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary. In framing a government which is to be administered by man over man, the great difficulty lies in this. You must first enable the government to control the governed, and then in the next place, oblige it to control itself. And so this is why we find ourselves in this complication where those that are in power of governing right now, whether it's MDC under Chamisa or MDC under Kupi or ZANU-PF, they have taken the power unto themselves and they have forgotten that this is a continuing conversation with the people, right? That in order to govern a democracy, we must continue to have a conversation. And the conversation must say, are these decisions that we're making the right ones? Do people agree with these decisions? And then to someone's very important question on how do we make the citizenry aware of the Constitution? You know, I think in our public school education, in our universities, people must be required to take Zimbabwean Politics 101 or Constitutionalism 101, because our rights are held within the Constitution, but the Constitution cannot function in a vacuum. It cannot function on itself. And I'll pause there.
Thanks, Chipo. Thanks. Excellent as usual. Thank you very much. Paul Mangwana. There were some questions to you, Paul, but also your wrap up. Mute yourself, Paul.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, go on now.
We adopted the principle of representative democracy. A president, I'll give you an example of a president who is directly elected by the people. That president can be removed from the office by parliament. Parliament, which is elected through various means. So we do not go to the people again to say, you are the ones who elected the president into office. Now we are not happy with the president, or if the people think that they are not happy with the president, we ask the people to hold a referendum as to whether the president should continue or not. We go to parliament, which is deemed to be representing the people. And the people and parliament can recall a president who is directly elected by the people. I'm giving this as an example, just to emphasize the point that the type of democracy we are enjoying in our country in terms of our constitution is representative democracy. In the same manner, when a member of parliament is contesting an election, they are sponsored by a political party. You will not be allowed to contest an election on the basis of a political party ticket without the signature of the Secretary General of that political party. Why do we have that provision? So that there is confirmation that the policies we are going to be debating and putting in place in parliament are the policies and ideologies of that political party which is sponsoring you. That is the basis for the existence of that provision, where if the political party power to recall you, and when they recall you, a by-election, if you are representing a constituency, will be held, and you are free to contest as an independent. And so you are not taking away the right of the electorate again in expressing their views. If they feel that the political party, and there are quite a number of examples where political parties actually withdrew their support from a candidate, and that candidate went on to contest an election and won the election as an independent. We've quite a number of instances which have taken place in our democratic history. So we are not that provision does not take away the right of the constituents to choose the representative whom they want. So in my closing remarks, I'm saying the Constitution is okay. The Constitution as it is all right. We adopted representation through political parties. Therefore, the political party has a right to confirm as to whether or not a representative is still representing its interests. If it's not representing their interests, then they recall that person. And the right to recall is important for us to continue to have political parties having a say, a measurement as to whether the representatives in parliament are still representing their interests. Because at the end of the day, come the conclusion of 5 years, if we allow members of parliament to represent their own interests when they are in parliament, that political party will not be able to retain power.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Paul. Thanks very much for coming to the debate. Thank you indeed. We'll meet again soon. Douglas Monzora. Douglas. Tejara.
Thank you very much. I would want to thank everybody who has directed their questions to me. I want to address the two professors, Professor Denere and Professor Madonsela. Thank you very much for your comments, but there is one point that I want to make clear. Are we discussing law, constitution, or are we discussing morality? We are discussing law. What does the law say? What does the Constitution say? Does the Constitution of Zimbabwe provide for recalls? Does the Constitution of South Africa provide for recalls? Yes, they provide for recalls. President Jacob Zuma, addressing Honorable Madonsela, President Jacob Zuma survived 7 votes of no confidence in the parliament. The ANC had not gone to the people, to the generality of the South Africans, the 59 million, to say we are about to pass a vote of no confidence. They acted as a party. President Mbeki was removed, was recalled by the ANC. It was not preceded by a referendum of the South African people. So was President Zuma. It is the same principles that apply. Now, I want to answer the question by Professor Denere about where the people are. Where is the voter? Let's remember that the voter in this country voted for a constitution in a referendum in 2013. That constitution provides for political rights. It provides for formation of political parties as agents of the people. And that same constitution goes on to give the political powers of recall. And to Professor Denere, let me again correct you there. Zimbabwe does have a party list system. This is what we call proportional representation, where a party provides a list of people to be elected either into Senate or into the National Assembly as part of the women's quota. And those people are chosen by a political party. And when it comes to recall, they are recalled by that political party that chose them. They are replaced by that political party that recalled them. That is what the law says. When it comes to the people who are directly elected by the electorate, the law gives the political party the power of recall, and that person is subjected back to the electorate, and the electorate can vote for that person or not for that person. So they are not completely prejudiced. So there is involvement of the people. I want to go to my brother Brian, and I want to say thank you very much for what you have said, and it was very passionate. But you betrayed one thing, my brother. You did not research. And I want to demonstrate to you, my brother, and you can check this. The Congress that was held in Guero, the Congress in which I unsuccessfully contested the post of Secretary General, was not an MDC Alliance Congress. It was an MDC Changirai Congress. How do you know that, Brian? You go to the resolutions of that Congress. You will see, and you can Google them. It is they are entitled Resolutions of the 50th Congress of the MDC. And again, it was called the 50th Congress. And if it was the Congress of the MDC Alliance, it should have been the first Congress. In the same year, 2019, in September or October, I think 14 October, we celebrated the 20th anniversary of the MDC. It couldn't have been the MDC Alliance because the MDC Alliance was barely a year old. So again, you did not look at facts, my brother. And I want to refer you to go to the Twitter handle of Nelson Chamisa between end of February 2019 to end of June 2019. You will see Chamisa there telling people about the MDC Congress. And if you go to the election material for Welshman Nube, Charlton Nwende, and so on, their campaign posters, they are campaigning for the MDC. If you go to the resolutions read by Tabita Kumalo, she refers to the MDC and not the MDC Alliance. The MDC Alliance, that is why also at the same Congress, we welcomed back into the party Welshman Nube and Tendai Biti. We couldn't have welcomed back people who were forming a party, whom we were forming a party with. They were coming back from to the MDC.
Let's sum up, Tejara, please.
So the point I'm making is that everything that was done, it was done above board. That is what the law says. That is what the constitution of the MDC says. We in the MDC want to take over governmental power through peaceful, democratic, and constitutional means. And one of the starting points is that we must respect our constitution to the letter, no matter how inconvenient it may be to certain people, no matter how it may have prejudiced our friends. We have recalled people because they did not belong to our political parties. Some of the people we recalled is because they are fingered in corruption. Some of them are facing 17 counts of corruption, and we have recalled them in line with our stance against corruption.
Thank you, Tejara. Thank you very much. Thank you for participating in this. Thank you. It was good to have you. I'll have Alex Magaisa. Alex, unmute yourself.
Okay. Thank you very much. I've listened very patiently to the submissions that have been made by my colleagues, and I want to thank them for a very civilized discussion that we had today. I just wanted to say to Nkomapo Mangwana that in fact, political parties do go to the people when it suits them. In 2017, during the coup, ZANU-PF went to the people. It corralled people, fooled people into believing that they were participating in the removal of President Robert Mugabe. And unfortunately, that right to demonstration is no longer allowed in this new so-called Second Republic. The point about a party list that Nkoma Dagi has made reference to is very interesting, because you would have to ask that when people went to ZEC in 2018 to submit the party list, which party submitted the party list? To my understanding, it would have been the MDC Alliance, ZANU-PF, MDCT, led by Dr. Kupe, and those are the positions that were taken in allocating those party lists. But that's a technical point. I don't want to get too much into all those things. I just want to conclude in summing up. that the issue that we face is an ethical issue. Senator Monzora wants to say it's about the law, legal, its constitution, and so forth. Fair enough. But what Chipo was saying, what Tuli was saying, what Brian has been saying, all these guys, is that there is a danger in taking a very legalistic approach to issues that concern the lives of the people, that it is politics, that in this politics, there are also ethics. When I started, I said all parties are to blame. I said the MDCT is to blame, the MDC Alliance is to blame, the ZANU-PF is to blame, because they have all used this provision in a manner that is vindictive, in a manner that tries to uphold their own political position at the expense of those who oppose them. And I thought that that was going to set out the context of this discussion. But to my surprise, it looks to me like some of us came here to defend ourselves as opposed to discussing issues of principle. And I thought that we were going to round on those issues, focus on what our democracy should be, how things should be. So the discussion should never have been about what is, but it should also have been what ought to be. What are the issues that we should, what are the standards that we should aspire to have? Is it right for us to say that the party is supreme at the expense of the people? Should we not be going back to the people? Should we not be setting up a law that allows for democratic representation of the people in the process of recall? I thought that those were the kind of discussions that we were going to have, as opposed to I'm right, they are wrong, because that doesn't take us anywhere. Finally, Dr. Mandaza, it's an issue of public trust. As politicians, as intellectuals, as activists, and as people who are concerned with our respective countries in our countries, we must always consider, is what we are doing relevant in terms of the people? Is what we are doing sufficient to maintain public trust in politics? If you ask the average Zimbabwean today, they are very disillusioned. They are disillusioned by the political process because it's a political process that has become exclusionary. It's a political process that is privileging the elites, a few people who consider them to be leaders of political parties, to make decisions on their behalf, not only to recall their MPs, but also to impose their own people. What ethics are there when you go out there and take someone who lost an election and lost that election dismally, and you say that that person is coming back into parliament to become an MP for that constituency, for that province, to even become the leader of the opposition in parliament? It doesn't make sense. It is an assault on public trust. Why should I go and vote in 2023 when my vote is not going to make any difference, when someone is going to change the decision and bring someone else that I rejected to become my MP? I want to conclude by saying that in politics, as in law, it's not just about written rules. The written constitution that we have is a great document. It has its weaknesses. But constitutions on their own do not resolve issues. Even a country like the United States of America, with a 200-year-old constitution, even the United Kingdom, with a constitution that goes back centuries, there are certain unwritten rules of the game that politicians abide by, that politicians and the people abide by. Rules like respect for the other person, rules like forbearance. Forbearance means a very simple thing. You have power, but you don't have to use it. So even if the Supreme Court had given the MDCT power and say that you are now the opposition party, the MDCT could have exercised forbearance and said, well, we don't have to do that. Likewise, in 2015, the MDC, led by President Changirai at the time, did not have to recall those MPs who had chosen to go and form another party. They could have exercised forbearance. Likewise with ZANU-PF. What I'm saying is that in dealing with our political system, let's not just focus on what we see as the rules in black and white. Let us also consider the values, those unwritten rules that govern relations between politicians and between politicians and the people. I conclude there.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Alex. Well, who can ignore those compelling concluding remarks? The issue of public trust, ethics. There is morality in politics. There can be morality in politics. And I think that the debate, although you're a bit depressed about the focus on legalities and constitutional issues. I think the debate helped us to raise those very issues of public trust, the issue of morality, national interest, Brian called it, above all else. And also democracy, as Tuli has emphasized. Demo comes from the Greek word, democracy comes from the Greek word of demo, the people, the primacy of the people. And I think if anything that has emerged in this discussion is the extent to which as Brian calls it, the festival of absurdities and the illegalities, is the extent to which I realized through this very educational